Welcome to the Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 Garrison Board of Education regular workshop business meeting. Dusty, would you call the roll, please?
Jocelyn Apicello. Here. David Gelber.
Here.
Madeline Julian. Here. Courtney McCarthy.
Here.
Kent Schott. Here. Matthew Spicer.
Here.
Sarah Tormey.
Here. Okay, next we have accept agenda changes. Does anyone have any recommended changes to this evening's agenda as presented? Okay. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move on to President's remarks. I'm going to begin this evening with Courtney, Mr. Yap, who's here, and I had the opportunity to tour the O'Neill High School on the Saturday prior to Thanksgiving. Superintendent Sheboy led the tour. We were joined by 2 Highland Falls board members and the assistant principal of the high school. The tour really focused on the recent facilities upgrades from their last capital improvements project. There were really impressive updates to the sports fields. If you ever get to go see a game there, I mean, they have 2 full-size football fields, so they can run soccer, football, lacrosse at the same time. Beautiful baseball diamond with solar signs. It was pretty neat, and we were there on a nice day, so you got to see the view of the river. It was really pretty. You can just jump in here if I'm leaving anything out. We saw, the gyms, the lockers, which have all been renovated, some renovated science classrooms as well. I'm not really a chemist, so I can't speak exactly, but they have the hood, this like chamber. It was really pretty neat with the stuff they were describing. So really impressive. They did talk a little bit about what their future capital project will be, which they're going to look to renovate their HVAC system, and their cafeteria are on the list for that. Their board member, one of the board members, did renew their request to us to send a board representative to their meetings. They would really like us to have a seat at the table and be a voice in their decision-making process, especially as they embark on a new capital project. So if anyone is interested, please let me know. I'm going to pop this back on the agenda for our next meeting. If no one can commit to the time to go over there, their meetings are on Thursdays. I thought maybe we could try and set up a rotating schedule, and we could all maybe take one throughout budget season at least, and then report back so we have an idea of what's happening and really be able to be a voice for our students. I know that they had someone in the past who was really vocal over there, at least through budget season. Well, we have, Kent is our representative for Haldane. We just didn't have anyone step forward this year for O'Neill. I had done it last year, and I don't think I really didn't do a very good job of it. It was not, it's a lot of time, so maybe dividing it up would be a better answer to this.
But I am participating in their capital project planning committee, and I watch their meetings, so, and I have attended their meeting as requested, but I don't go to every one of their meetings now.
And I don't see this as being every meeting, but through the budget process, they would really like to hear, where should we focus? What do we want for our students? Our money goes over there, our students go over there. What do we want to see in return? It's very nice of them to extend the invitation. So let's take them up on it as best we can and see what we can make of it. So if anyone's interested in going to every one of those and just jumping in on it, let me know. Otherwise, we'll try and I'll get the calendar set up, and we'll see what we can set up and get somebody over there, at least through the budget part. All right, next thing I have, the State Comptroller's Office has noticed that I love audits, and they have notified us that our district will be audited. Our district is overdue for an audit. Our last state comptroller's audit was in 2016, so this is just routine. This isn't caused by anything. And while not unexpected, though, it's going to place an increased burden on our business office, who will have to compile all of the information for this audit. We are going to kick this project off on December 14th, where they have invited us to an entrance conference. Carl, Joe, and I will attend that, and then I'll report back. So that's what I've got on the audit. You all should have received a letter about that as well. And then we also have been invited to a meeting with Haldane. They've requested to meet to discuss tuition rates again. Just as a reminder for the public, we have a 5-year contract with Highland Falls that sets the rates and keeps the yearly increases to 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. This contract began this year. We have a 1-year contract that will start next year with Putnam Valley. If the board decides to add a referendum in May, we could ask the public if we could enter into a 5-year contract with Putnam Valley, but we do need public approval to do so. We just amended a 5-year contract with Haldane. That covers all the students who are currently at Haldane at the same rate as O'Neill and Putnam Valley throughout their time at Haldane. It does not cover the current 7th grade cohort or any other cohort. So that's what we'll be meeting to discuss is future tuition rates. So this meeting will kick that off. And I'm sure we'll have a very productive conversation. They've been great to work with so far in this process, and I hope that will continue. And then we'll report back and let you know how that goes. That's all I've got. Carl, I'm going to hand it over to you to superintendent's remarks.
Sure. I have an update for the board. You may recall back in August, Governor Hochul signed legislation increasing the amount for low-income or disabled seniors. It's a tax exemption up to a maximum of $50,000 in income for 50%. It's done on a sliding scale. Joe is doing some research on this because now that the county has approved it, now local municipalities such as school districts can choose to approve it as well. The timing of it is the deadline is March 1st, so we do have some time. My recommendation to the board would be that Joe and I come back to you at our January meeting, which is our next meeting, give you information such as how many seniors do we believe in Garrison would qualify for this, what is the impact, if any. Also, I would be able to collect data on the other school districts in Putnam County and to see if they are moving forward, leaning towards adopting it or not. Once we give you that information, and Joe will give more detail about the financial side of it, I would encourage the board to try to make a decision by February and not go right down to the March deadline. I also think deciding a month early would give seniors a little more time if they were to file for this tax break. Okay, so any questions about that? No? Okay. The only other thing I have is reminder, our winter concert is on Wednesday, the 21st. The students are working incredibly hard, and anyone that missed the spring concert, I encourage you to come out for this concert. It should be wonderful. And the students would appreciate the support. And also just happy holidays to all of the board and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone have any questions for Carl? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on then to board communications and presentations. Okay, Madeline, you're up first with NYSSBA convention update.
This should be fast. So attached is the all of the resolutions reviewed. All of the recommended resolutions by NYSSBA were approved, with the exception of resolution number 26, unfortunately, regarding gun laws. And I'm just gonna say thank you again for Matt for writing the resolutions that we submitted. It failed by 5%. And I am just gonna read just one sentence from the rationale that you wrote there, Matt. And that is that among the guns used in school shootings, 48% were not securely stored. So that's a really high percentage for all of the mass school shootings that's going on nationally. So what we're looking for is advocacy to store guns more safely and awareness program. That this is 48% of the shootings. So we're probably going to try again next year. We only needed 5% more. And I'm also going to recommend maybe we can reach out to some our local politicians, local representative, to see if they can also include this moving forward.
I'm not clear, what were you proposing and what was the argument against?
So we were proposing to have gun storage reforms, making sure that there's awareness on how to store guns properly, and also there's training, that there's sufficient training to store the guns, to at least lower the percentage of guns used during mass school shootings because of unsecured guns.
It's not a state law to secure your gun. It's
It's county right now, like we have a law in Phillipstown, but
Town law,
it's a town law, it's localized.
so it's so across the state, it's like piecemeal, the kind of laws.
And that was voted down by educators?
That was voted down mostly by New York, the NYSSBA, other school district. It was very upsetting, let's say, but it was a long discussion. We had a long discussion. They did bring up a lot of issues of why not.
Do you remember any?
Yes, like one of them, sports. There are some high school students that use guns as a sport.
But they don't lock their guns.
Well, first, thank you for pushing it and working with everybody. And did anyone have any suggestions for ways we could edit the wording or tweak the wording that would push it over the hump, or no?
What I found was there were a lot for it, a lot against it. And it was really hard, right, to just convince the districts that were against it. The district that were against it were more on the north New York State District. And there was at least half an hour discussion back and forth on this one resolution. I believe that NYSSBA, because it is a NYSSBA recommended resolution, they also feel strong about it. So we're hoping that we can bring it up next year again and see what we can do locally to bring awareness. And all we're trying to do is just bring awareness to safe gun storage, right? And the impact that it's having on all of these mass school shootings.
Thank you for doing it, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I mean, even though it failed, I think the conversation is worthwhile. It starts there, so I think that's really key. So thank you for going and engaging in that. And all your time as our NYSSBA rep. You don't have to do the O'Neill job. All right. Okay. Any other questions for Madeline on the resolutions? All right. Moving on, we have presentations from Mr. Yap this evening. Thank you so much for coming in and for joining us. The first one is Understanding the Whole Child, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to show you two totally different sides of looking at a student and quantifying how a student is doing academically. And so I hope I'll present both sides as effectively as possible. The district just received a new tool that is called School Meter. A lot of districts in the area have it. It allows us to compare our state data to New York State, to Putnam, Northern Westchester BOCES, basically slice and dice a million different ways. And it not only has state data, state assessment data, it has financial data, AP data. Definitely something that's interesting is it has IB data. international baccalaureate data, has a lot of different data that we can compare. And that's the whole tool behind School Meter. The tool came about from a former board member at Bedford that kept on trying to do this in Excel off of the state report card. And he would come up with it himself, and then other people would want to share. And that was about 15 years ago, and now it's a company. So, and it's a very successful company. Like I said, most of the districts in the area do have it. I'll go over the data in broad terms and then break it down a little bit more. The teachers, I went through the same presentation with the teachers, and the good news is that Garrison is doing extremely well. This is our data for last year, and to understand it, New York State reset the data and reset the bars related to all the 3 through 8 assessments, which was great because we had huge holes in the data because of COVID. And New York State is under a growth model. So when you have holes in the data, there's no growth. You can't really model growth. So they had to reset. They really didn't have a choice. But by resetting, it's going to take about 4 years for the exam to be factored the right way, because right now they're trying to calibrate it over the next 3 years. By the 4th year, that data is basically locked in. So the first year, it's kind of, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the differences, and really locks into what a student should know and be able to do at each grade level. So again, just looking at it holistically, the number in the bottom right-hand corner, that 82.6, it's a fuzzy number, and anyone that is familiar with math, you're never supposed to average an average of an average, but that's basically what that is. So what that says is in the state, we're in the top 17% of districts. And of the districts, there's 676 that took the New York State 3 through 8 assessment, and we were 110th, which is very, very good. When we break it down into individual assessments, one thing that was great to see among the staff when I presented to them was that they were congratulating each other and realizing that something that I've realized very quickly in the time that I've been here at Garrison is that this is a learning community, and everyone is helping everyone, and that everyone is contributing to each other's success. And they were very happy and really saw the scores as not my scores or your scores, it was everyone's scores, that they were really happy to see everyone succeeding and everyone doing well. And it was great to see among the faculty. So when I talk about a certain grade level, I'm not talking about a grade level, I'm really talking about the learning community of Garrison and all the students and all that they're doing. So in ELA, we did extremely well. Our lowest percentage was ELA 3, which is 20%, which is to be, we're in the top 20%. I'm not going to focus on the numbers in the red and the green. They do mean that they went up or down the previous year, but remember that the previous year was a sample test. And depending on if the teacher actually gave access to the sample test or not, really depends on, you know, how districts are doing. There were some districts that mandated it the previous year that people had to do the sample test, and then of course their 3s and 4s went through the roof the previous year. This was the first year of quote unquote live data, where this was a real test, no one had access to it before, and this was live data. So, but with ELA 3, we know that our youngest students were most affected by the pandemic because they didn't have those foundational skills, and that is the same with our students. We didn't do as well compared to some of our other grade levels, but we're still in the top 20% across the state. And then it just goes up from there to astronomical numbers, and something that the whole district should be proud of. We go up to 18% in ELA 4, the top 3% in the state on ELA 5. And then we just go straight through the roof. We're at the top 5% in ELA 6, top 0.7% on ELA 7, and 0.16% on ELA 8. So ELA 8, there's 683 districts. we were number 11. We were the 5th ranked district out of 682. In Putnam County, in almost all of those assessments, we were number 1. And we stayed number 1. In math, there were a lot of ties, so the scores are a little deceiving, but I'll go through them quickly. Math 3, we're in the top 7%. Math 4, we were in the top 10%. Math 5, we were in the top 19%. Math 7, we had a little, Math 7 and Math 8, Math 6 and Math 7, we had a little bit of a dip, but we were still in the top 30% and the top 40%. And then we climbed back out with the Math 8, where we were in the top 4% in the state. Again, with all these numbers, we were still either 1 or 2. Sometimes, I think with Math 7, I think we were 3rd or 4th in the county. But again, when we're dealing with small numbers, cohorts matter and things can change. So overall, again, 82.6%, or in the top 17% in the state. We'll be showing more data from this tool, especially in the budget process and looking at the data. I've conveyed to Carl that we can share it in a bunch of different ways. All this data is data that is public to anyone that wants to see it. It's on the school report card. This tool just makes it easier for districts to collate it and see it in a lot easier way. Okay? Now to the fun stuff. Yes, 21-22. And believe it or not, they're expecting that the report card for 21-22, this is typical of New York State, welcome to New York State, is we'll get the report card in March or April for 21-22, which is pretty stereotypical. So, thanks to the GSEF, I wrote 2 different grants that have to do with early elementary. I was a high school teacher, but throughout my career, I've taken a big interest in early elementary and brain-based research. And I've been working with, especially our early elementary teachers, to teach them a lot about the brain-based research and how to help their students with reading, writing, math, and not focusing on the skill of reading, writing, and math itself, but working on other skills that influence it dramatically. And so the first grant that I'm going to talk about is a sensory pathway, which is all about kinesthetic learning. And I'm just going to show a short YouTube video that shows the kinesiology and just a little boy just going through a path that we'll be getting very shortly that we're thinking will go into the elementary wing. So I'll just play this video. So that's the sensory pathway, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, but I want to show the other grant that I wrote that also has to do with just hands-on learning. The tool is called a Rigamajig, and I'll play the video and then explain a little bit more on how it fits into the curriculum.
Maybe we can do it like this. That's what I was trying to say.
is no one right answer. So the children have come up with an idea, some sort of vision.
What? Do you guys know what this is?
Sometimes that they want to create and they set to work on it.
What about in a car?
Hold it straight.
You get to use your hands on it and go inside of it and ride on it.
Kids look at it and they go, oh, I can do this. That automatically attracts them in. Oh, now we've used all the holes for the corners and we don't have any place to attach this thing that we want to attach. Oh, we'll have to take that apart, move it over a little bit, find another way. So they're challenging themselves.
That'll be cool, Adam. But how would we do that? And then the tails are going to go on the end.
Not a question of I got it right or I didn't. It's a question of what else could I try?
Now we need the other one. Where's the other one? That'll go. Oh, look, a ball. I got a screw that in. Well, first it was like a house. But then it ended up that we wanted to make it portable and you could move it by walking. Is it even? It's not even. Our mission is almost complete.
They can make things for themselves in their environment that they can then play with. It's a very empowering tool.
So in order to use this, you have to pull this back so you can pull it back down. So now, as I'm showing, I am mowing the grass. What's it go like that? Yeah, we tweak it. Tweak it. There. I did it. I did it.
So in the kindergarten space, this is the rigamajig. It can be used for the pushes and pulls unit in kindergarten and third and fourth grade, as well as other grades at the middle school level. They're simple machines. And so it can be used in a lot of different ways. We're thinking of storing it here in the Learning Commons, so it can be used by multiple grade levels. Again, just something that is very hands-on and easy to use. Getting back into the kinesiology, these are all skills that have to do with crossing the midline that have a tremendous effect on reading. One of the biggest ones is the one listed up top, skipping. There's research study after research study. If you cannot skip, you cannot read. If you want to help a child read, besides teaching them phonological awareness, phonemes, morphemes, teach them how to skip because they can't track. They can't go from left to right without skipping. So there's tons of research around it. Crawling is another one. Again, you're going from left to right as you're crawling. And there's a lot of kids these days that do not know how to crawl. Pencil rolling means that you put your hands above your head and you roll. That's an even more advanced skill, and that has to do with comprehension. You can't comprehend if you can't pencil roll. You have to stay in a straight line. Some of the research that I'm telling you about, the scientists are still figuring out. They know it's right. They've proven the research. They don't know why. So it's very interesting. The bear movement, our kindergarten teachers are doing most of these things already, but the bear movement they love. The bear movement are just those bears right there that they have been using in math for a very long period of time. And they take these tongs that they have that are fairly big, that are plastic, and they put the bears right here on the child. And they say, take them and move them from here to over to here. And just move them. And once you get all of them over here, move them back to the other side. And I've walked into the kindergarten classroom and seen the kids been doing these over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And the teachers really seemed like this is helping. And these are the early steps before multisensory reading that could really help our students. So I've been teaching the teachers about these. In math, number line jumping. When you get, it's exactly like it sounds and maybe not. We always talk about counting by twos, counting by threes, but how about jumping by twos, jumping by threes? And so we're thinking about getting longer units where it has all the numbers and show the child how to jump by ones, by twos, by threes. And it imprints on the brain. Tracing numbers and shapes is also very, very beneficial. This one is the one that has scientists scratching their head the most, but there's research study after research study, and I'll show you the research in just a couple slides. There's research that shows if a child needs to memorize something simple, or an adult for that matter, and you walk in the infinity symbol, in that shape, your memory improves, and you're able to remember simple things like grocery list, like spelling words, simple things like that. Ball throwing is something else that... Ball throwing is, you have an alphabet chart, and at the younger grades, you just take a big dodgeball and you say letter name, the letter name and the letter sound, and they're just hitting it with both hands. But it helps imprint the letter sound and letter name as they're hitting, and they're moving at the same time. At the upper grade levels, it becomes a lot more complex, but it still helps. You need to challenge the child so their memory still sticks. So you put a tennis ball, like for even the 6th or 7th grader or an 8th grader, this is still difficult. You put a tennis ball in their dominant and non-dominant hand, and let's say they have science vocabulary. They have to go up to the letters and spell out the vocabulary word and go from dominant to non-dominant hand and hit each letter. And the memory improves significantly. The infinity symbol trick, one of our teachers, Ms. Julian, tried it, and her spelling scores went through the roof just this week. So she shared that with the staff just at our staff meeting. So it's definitely starting to spread throughout the school and definitely helping. So
I don't understand that. Can you just explain a little more what that means, the infinity symbol?
So the infinity symbol is like an 8 turned sideways.
Right. Okay.
And so if you walk in that symbol, the scientists are still trying to figure out why, but it seems to help the memory and help the brain connections. Does that make sense?
That's true for senior citizens as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's true for anyone. We're just applying it to our smallest learners, but it helps with, the study has been replicated again and again. Okay? All right. Oh, it is? Okay.
Thank you for joining us. Good job, Tim.
One of the organizations that has done the most research in this area, believe it or not, is the CDC. I'm sure they're trying to take a break from COVID and would love to work on this instead. So this is just a quote from them, that physical activity has a large impact on cognitive skills. Again, this study has been replicated again and again. This is a composite of 20 students' brains taking a test. The brain on the left is, they went straight from sitting quietly in one classroom to sitting quietly in another. The brain on the right are 20 students that got up and did moderate to low impact walking. And if you look at the brain difference, they're accessing parts of the brain that those that were sitting quietly did not have access to. None of them. That went from sitting quietly in one classroom to another classroom. None of them had access to the right side of the cortex. None of them. So it is a massive difference. This is math-specific research, again, done by the CDC. It shows, ability to focus for long periods of time, increased confidence and lower test anxiety. Just when you're doing low to medium, let alone high, high is the best, but even low to medium impact walking or running, you get these results. So increased ability to problem solve, improved memory, recall, and problem solving ability. Are there any questions before I move on? Or comments? Yeah, Sarah.
So I have one basic one. You said this was a GSEF grant. What did GSEF agree to fund for us if they've already agreed? Is it the steps or?
I'm
math?
not sure. I'm not sure of your question. The rigamajig and the sensory pathway are the two GSEF grants.
So those physical components are
Yes.
what they agreed to fund?
Yes.
And then you'll handle the training with the staff
Yes.
separately?
Yes.
So there's-
Yes, I'll take them through the training myself.
So there's no reoccurring cost with this program either?
No.
It's really just, once we have the things graciously donated through GSEF donations, they're here, and then we can just employ
Right.
them to use them for this.
One
That's
thing I've
amazing.
learned about with grants is you do not want reoccurring costs.
I don't want reoccurring costs on anything.
So you want something that's a one-off so that the grant really benefits and has sticking power going forward. And so, yeah.
Is there any research about time of day for the activity for kids of this age, or does it not matter if it's just preceding learning or during learning, or is there
There
some
is
correlation?
there is research that is an opposite correlation. So younger students should be taking tests earlier in the morning. Older students should be taking tests later in the day.
And on the physical side, is there any research about recess being more productive for them at a certain time, or as long as they have physical activity in the day, that's all that matters?
I'm trying to keep this short. So, there's a program that we have that through grants that this organization won called Go Noodle. It used to be a paid program for schools. Now it's free. And it's not about, I want to get away from the term recess or physical education, because it could be in the classroom, just getting up and doing, again, low impact.
Oh, for sure.
So
I'm all in on that.
Right.
Yeah, I just was in conjunction with that. I was wondering if it was more helpful to have.
what the
recess
research
in the
shows is as
morning.
long as there's physical activity before rigorous academics, it doesn't matter if it's recess or if it's phys ed or if it's Go Noodle. It doesn't matter. It's just, the brain doesn't know the difference. And so as long as there's physical activity, that's the most important part.
But how do you apply that to the school day? I mean, what do you do differently here, during the school day to apply what you've learned in that walking research?
Great question. So that's one of the reasons why we're getting the sensory pathway. You have a student that might be reading or trying to read at a lower elementary level for a long period of time, especially in the state of New York. And you can see, we're expecting snow on Sunday. You want them to have physical activity in multiple time periods. So the sensory pathway will be a way for the students, instead of just saying, okay, you're going to have extra recess, it's actually still challenging the brain, still challenging the mind, and making them learn. And instead of just learning how to read and trying to go over the same phonemes again and again, it takes the brain and is still activating the same part of the brain, but in a different way, and doing it physically instead of just cognitively. Yeah.
You said you presented this to the faculty, kind of sorts?
I presented this presentation to the faculty, but I have been having conversations with the K-1-2 teachers since I got here, and just, meeting with them in the room.
So they're into it, like asking their students to
Big time.
get up and like do 20
Yes.
jumping jacks?
Yes.
10 burpees?
Yes.
Run
Yes.
around, something fun.
Yes.
I think that's great. I wonder, I hope all the teachers in the world consider this as
Yes.
a way to maximize, their brain activity.
Right. What the research shows is that the biggest, like anything else, the biggest gains we're seeing at the lower elementary level, but that's not to say that it's not helping at the upper elementary level. Okay?
Do you have any other questions before we move on? Madeline, go for it.
Yes.
We have an OT. Do you collaborate with the OT consultant
Not
that
yet.
we have?
Not
So
yet.
That would be, okay.
Not yet.
Great.
It's like, in my previous district, we even had a kinesthetic lab. How we got it is we had a computer lab. We didn't need a computer lab because we went to Chromebooks just like Garrison, and we had an empty room. And the whole room was literally hundreds of these kinds of activities. So the easiest way to start is with the sensory pathway, and to show the progress and to have the teachers buy in. I don't want to go whole hog if the teachers aren't right behind me, and right now they are. And so I want to make sure that it stays that way, and that they feel like that they have a voice at the table, and that I'm listening to what they're saying, and that I'm constantly talking with them and trying to collaborate on ideas like this.
Great.
Okay?
I think we're ready.
All right, so the next topic that Mr. Albano wanted me to talk about was civic readiness. So for those of you that aren't familiar, I'll give you a little history and then jump into the civic readiness. The state of New York realizes, this is going way back. This is a Cliff Clavin fact for the day. Regions have been around since 1865. That's the year the Civil War ended, okay? When Race to the Top happened, one of the things that states had to do for Race to the Top funding was get a graduation exam. New York was basically standing by themselves up to that point. Now there are graduation exams that are centered around ELA and math. And for New York State, the expensive Regents is one of the most expensive endeavors that New York State takes on, because they have to translate it into 16 different languages on top of making it psychometrically correct every single year with new items. So for that reason, they're starting to develop other ways of giving credit to students, especially in areas where the Regents curriculum isn't there. So about, probably almost a decade ago, they got rid of the World Language Exam, which used to be called the SLP, Second Language Proficiency. And there was a checkpoint A and a checkpoint B. Those terms still stayed. But now there's no Regents. And so what New York State did is they came up with the biliteracy seal. And they came up with criteria for it. And the reason I'm giving you all that history of that is now there's a good amount of districts that give out the biliteracy seal. In what New York has now moved on to, and seeing that as a success, and that a lot of states have followed after New York, and now it is part of the Common App. If you're not familiar with the Common App, it's what you have to fill out for college. So it is a question on the Common App, which most schools, not all, but most schools use, is are you on the way of getting the biliteracy seal, or have you achieved it? So it's an actual question. So New York also is a leader in the area of social studies, and other states, as soon as they announced this, they jumped on board, so it's in other states as well. And that's the Civic Readiness Seal. The Civic Readiness Seal is for social studies, but in a very, for lack of a better word, civic way of doing it. It's not just academics, and it's not just looking at academics. The criteria are up there on the slide. You have two different columns. The left-hand column, the civic knowledge column, is all around academics. The right-hand column is on civic participation and what that can look like. So just so you know, there's always loopholes, and New York State has basically closed a lot of them when they put this together. What they said is you need 6 points total, but you can't get more than 4 points in either column. So on the academic side, you can only get 4 points. You still need 2 points on the civic side. This allows students that might not be that strong academically to still get this seal and have it on their diploma. And it's a large honor to get this. So on the right-hand side, the same rules apply. You can't get 6 points in civic participation. You can only get 4, even though there's way more points than that. You still need 2 points, which means you have to pass each one of your regions at least. That's basically what they're saying. Why this is definitely at the high school level, but why this affects us is one of the first actions I took was I was close colleagues with all 3 assistant superintendents of Haldane, Highland Falls, and Putnam Valley. That I knew them before. So I contacted all 3 and I said, will you honor if we give the point in middle school? And all 3 responded, yes. So now we have, on the right-hand side, if you look, the middle school capstone project, which is worth 1 point. So graduating from here, they're 1 point ahead, and they only need to achieve 5 more points over their high school career. The idea is to give Garrison students a leg up as they go off to high school and really get them ready for the next step. So Ms. Valvano and I have talked a lot about this. Ms. Valvano had a fantastic idea where we're going to build in a lot of the culture and the community of the area. And we're going to partner, and Ms. Arbor is also going to be a part of this, to kind of ground us and to try and help us develop this capstone project. We're going to use the UN 17 sustainable goals, which have to do anywhere from world hunger to potable water and multiple other ones all the way up to 17 different goals. And we're going to use that as just a framework to come up with the capstone project. We're going to offer this to all 8th graders this year. Being realistic, probably maybe 5 or 6 the first year will be able to achieve it, because we want to set a high bar, and we want them to be able to achieve the point and for it to really mean something. Over the years, that, we'll have more and more students that will be able to achieve it. But the first year is a learning experience for all of us, and we're trying to set realistic goals. But we will be offering this to all students at the 8th grade level. Yes.
So if an 8th grader elects to complete a capstone project, what is the process, or who grades it to award the points? Do we need to form a committee?
Fairly. This is an 82-page handout, and I got it down to 3 or 4 that just had to do with the middle school. So with a little cutting and pasting, there is a committee that definitely Ms. Valvano and I will be on, as well as other people, that will be judging each one of the capstone projects based on a rubric that the state provides.
And do our high school partners, are they involved in that process, or do we just award the point and then send the student off to the high school of their choice?
Award the point and send them to
So
them.
thank you, by the way, for reaching out to our partners and getting the feedback on this.
Yes, Ken.
Do Putnam Valley, Haldane, or O'Neill do this at their middle school levels, or would this just be unique?
Putnam Valley is the only one that does it at the middle school level that I'm aware of, that the ASI said that they did. The other 2 did not respond to that question.
Could you give a couple of examples of capstone projects?
I wish I could, but last year was a pilot project, a pilot year, and most of the schools focused on the high school level and not the middle school. So Ms. Valvano asked me the same question, and I kind of came up dry. So that's why we're trying to use the UN 17 sustainable goals as a framework to try and help us come up with an example. It has to, I guess the best way for me to describe it is that it has to be a civic project that benefits the community, benefits Garrison in some form or fashion. I know that's very vacuous, but that's the definition that basically New York State is kind of giving us right now. Yes.
What's the time frame for students how long do they have to work on this? And is this something that they will be able to do in school, in a class, or is this all extracurricular?
No, yes, no.
I didn't
No.
even keep track of my time.
They will, Ms. Valvano and I have been talking more. We talked as soon as I arrived, but now we've been talking a lot more intensely, and probably after the new year is when we'll start to communicate with the students. And they will have time in school to have it. This year, we can be a little bit more loosey-goosey, but we would like to have it finished by May. This year, if somebody isn't done and it's more June, okay, this is the first year, that kind of thing. But really, especially when they go to the high school level for the rest of the points, especially when they're getting into junior, senior year, I know that most high schools are cutting off in like April or May, just to make, who's going to graduate with the seal or not.
And so this is something that students can opt into or opt out of, rather.
All students will have the opportunity to do it. It's just, all students will, it's not like that they will elect to be given it. All of them will partake in it. It's whose project is, deemed to get to have a point.
So they'll all create a
Yes.
capstone project.
Yes.
On their,
Yes.
individually.
Right.
Got it. Wow.
Yes.
So for this capstone here in Garrison, I guess you'll be working with maybe the town or local organizations? Is that part of it? Or does it happen really in the school and you imagine how it's going to impact the community?
I think in the first year that we would like to keep it, it's going to be huge, but at the same time, we want to keep it fairly small. Since we are going to be using the UN sustainable goals, I've reached out to an organization that I'm also using to help the school district get the Green Ribbon Award. And the name of the organization is SELF, which is Children's Environmental Literacy Foundation. And so they will be helping with this project as well. So the Green Ribbon as well as this.
Would it be possible to have, I'd love to look at the full document as well. This is a great summary, but I'd be curious to read it. Could you send it to us and maybe post the summary? I just like to read through. But I'm just curious. I'm like,
Sarah
look.
already read the policy manual, so she needs another hefty tome to read at night.
And would it be possible to post a summary maybe on the website?
Sure.
A place to direct
Yeah.
parents to
Yeah.
read and see it and then sort of
Yes.
start to wrap their head
Yes.
around it?
Yes.
That's great.
This is great.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Yap, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. And now we're going to move on to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns. In accordance with Policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District, any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to accepting the minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the minutes of the regular meeting of November 16, 2022 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Do you have any questions or comments on the minutes as presented? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Next, we have CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and the Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE, recommendations and student placements. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Okay, now we move on to new business. We have item A is a request for approval of Memorandum of Understanding, Putnam County Sheriff's Office. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the Memorandum of Understanding with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office as presented and further authorizes the superintendent to execute said agreement. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments on this before we move to a vote?
We've had a lot of discussion about this MOU. And one of the issues that was raised, I want to make a comment because of my vote, I want to just say that I believe that sharing access to our surveillance system with emergency services is a really smart move in case there are emergencies here on the school grounds and in the district. But I don't think that providing unlimited access is good. The MOU doesn't suggest that, so we're good. And I don't think that allowing our district to just give oral consent to the Putnam County Sheriff's Department to access our surveillance system is wise for our district. I think it puts whoever is designated as the person who can give oral consent, which is largely Carl, and probably Joe someday. I think it's too much power and responsibility, but also potential for something to go wrong. So I just wish that that would be struck, the oral consent clause, because I am in agreement that the sheriff's office should be able to access during emergency situations to help keep students, staff, visitors, even property in the school safe. So I just wanted to comment that I really wish the oral consent was struck.
And I have the same concern. I'm not going to repeat it all, but very similar concern.
And I probably should have started with you, Carl, to introduce this, but just for a brief introduction for everyone as to what we're discussing, this is an agreement with the Sheriff's Office that would allow them to access the cameras that are currently on the exterior of the school and in school hallways in the event of an emergency. They would just have immediate access, and it's password protected. Yes, we would know who it is. We can retract this agreement within 30 days. And this speaks a little bit to why I'm comfortable with the language as written, but I'm certainly open to hearing from other people. Aside from being recommended by council, I do trust the Sheriff's Office as our partner in what would be a horrific circumstance to use this wisely. Even when there isn't an incident or it isn't an emergency, I do trust them that they will not access it without a need. So, I don't think they're going to be sitting there looking at our cameras throughout the day. We can pull records. We can see who logged in and when at any point. We could review that weekly. We could review that monthly if we need to and know who's accessing it and what they're looking for. But I trust them as our partner in this and at the recommendation of council. But if anyone else has thoughts or wishes to comment, please let me know.
We come up with how we might want to review any activity if it happens, right? I mean, is it monthly or whatever it might be? Because I think it's a new agreement. So how much? I mean, it's supposedly they don't access the system unless there's an emergency, or if they get oral or written consent from Carl to test, maintain, or train staff on it. So that should be all of its use. So I wonder how often we should be checking on the usage or access.
Yeah, I'll just say it's a very easy thing. Mr. Yap could easily pull a report at any time, so that would be up to the board. I'll just add one more thing to what Sarah said. This agreement and the following agreement, they have a termination clause in them also. So our attorney pointed out that at any point, if the board, the district is dissatisfied with how this agreement is working between our district and the Sheriff's Department, we could put a stop to it as well. So just want to add that. It's an important feature of the agreement.
And I would say we'd only want to end it if we were actually reviewing data and found out that there was something weird going on. So that's why I say I think somehow we should review it as it's starting.
We could add a monthly report to our board meetings.
I don't even know if it has to be that formal, but whatever it can be, you know.
Yeah. Or potentially in your board updates, once a month or once a quarter.
Yeah.
So I think it's whatever the board is comfortable with, we could provide easily.
I appreciate what you guys are saying. For me, the consent is the critical piece, and to me, although I appreciate your concerns, the distinction between written and oral consent, to me, is negligible, because either way, consent is being given. And so, in an emergency, it would make sense to me that there might be circumstances where that consent would have to be oral as opposed to written.
In an emergency, there's no consent.
Or no consent, but in non-emergency, it would make sense to me that it would be oral or written. I'm comfortable with both versions of consent, but, so that's why I'm comfortable.
I agree, and I think the fact of the matter is our council is comfortable with this. Carl prefers the option of oral consent, should he be in a situation where he is unable to give written consent. And with an out clause, I really feel like, again, I'm with Sarah, I trust the sheriff's department, and I don't have any reason not to trust them. So I'm completely comfortable with this as well.
Can I just clarify, this is not a trust issue necessarily. It's a protection for Carl and the district that the only time the sheriff's department will be asking for consent is when they want to access it for training, maintenance, and testing, right? Because in an emergency, they have immediate access, unless I'm misunderstanding.
No, they
Okay,
do. In
right,
an
so they'll be
emergent
able to go in
situation-
when there's an emergency.
Absolutely.
It's more for these other circumstances that are not emergency situations. So I just want to make sure Carl is protected, and then all of us, if there's occasions that they want to access it, I want to make sure Carl knows, and there's a record of why you said, yes, you can train on Friday at 3 p.m. or whenever it is. So it's not about trust, it's about protection for Carl and the district.
Again, I'm comfortable with council's recommendation to accept as is on this, given they've put these together for other districts as well, and have it mirroring the other districts in our area as well. But okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move this one to a vote then, so we can get this in place. And again, we can't amend this and change it going forward. It's our agreement. Should we want, but this gets it in place. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Nay.
Abstentions? Okay, thank you. The next, we have a request for approval of Memorandum of Agreement, Putnam County Sheriff's Office. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the Memorandum of Agreement with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office dated October 26, 2022, and presented at this meeting, and further authorizes the superintendent to execute said agreement. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Carl, do you want to speak to this one before we jump in?
Sure. In general, the Sheriff's Department, using American Rescue Plan funding, purchased technology, the Faro 3D site mapping technology. What this can do is provide 3D imaging of our entire school building. So currently, the district has a district safety plan as well as a building level, more in-depth safety plan that is shared with local law enforcement. It's a requirement from New York State. Included in the building plan are just straightforward floor plans that were provided by our architects who recently worked on our renovation project. So this would be an enhanced version. The police department would be able to have 3D imaging of this building and basically every corner of the building. It would be conducted most likely on a Saturday or a holiday when no students were present in the school. It would take several hours. We would give them access. But then at that point, it would be a huge advantage for them to have 3D imaging of the entire school building, every classroom, every office, every corridor. So this agreement basically gives permission for us to move forward with this. Okay.
Any questions, concerns on this agreement as presented? Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Request for approval of Memorandum of Agreement Garrison Teachers Association. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the Memorandum of Agreement with the Garrison Teachers Association dated December 2nd, 2022, presented at this meeting, and further authorizes the superintendent to execute said agreement. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll speak to this one.
What prompted this is our difficulty in securing a coach for this winter season, for specifically the girls' modified basketball team. We had a coach. The coach needed to withdraw at a late point in time. We posted this position for several weeks, probably almost a month, and had a very weak response. Now, part of that may have been the timing, but it also prompted me to take a closer look at the stipend that we offer as compared to other districts in the area. So the original stipend was $3,344. It is part of the GTA collective bargaining agreement. So that was negotiated. It's been at that amount for quite some time. In looking at our county and also Putnam and northern Westchester, the ranges for modified coaching seem to be mid 4,000 to over 5,000 in some districts. So my recommendation is to increase the modified coaching stipend from $3,344 to $5,000 per season, per sport. I do think this will put us above certain districts, but it will make us more competitive. It'll help us to secure qualified coaches. I did consult with Joe Jimick, and we believe the current budget line could support this increase for this winter as well as the spring. Typically, something like this does wait for contract negotiations, but we had an immediate need, and I do think this was helpful in us being able to secure a basketball coach currently for modified girls' sports. Any questions?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Okay. Dusty, I'm going to ask a question. And the resolution to amend, I should read this, yes?
That's entirely up to you. I know it's a lengthy one. Or Joe could summarize it, I'm sure.
Okay, so it's a resolution to amend the Garrison Union Free School District 403B retirement plan. And before I give you a monologue, I'm going to read the first sentence of it. Whereas the Garrison Union Free School District maintains the Garrison Union Free School District 403B retirement plan, and whereas the plan was duly adopted on the first day of January 2009 by the district's Board of Education, and whereas the board desires to reinstate and amend the plan as regards Section 5.4 hardship withdrawals, now therefore it should be it resolved that Section 5.4 of the plan is hereby restated and amended to read as follows. Now, there's another 2 pages of this, so it is public record, and you can read it in our agenda if you wish. Correct, Dusty? If anyone in the public wishes to read all of it. May I have a summary, please?
Yes, so essentially what this is doing is when COVID happened, they recognized the need for a modification of what is considered a hardship withdrawal from your 403B plan. So a hardship withdrawal is a certain bunch of qualifiers that have to be met in order for you to take an early withdrawal from your 403B because you have some sort of issue that meets certain criteria. So the laws essentially were changed that changes the criteria, and in order for us to follow those laws, we have to amend our 403B plan. And this resolution amends it to what the law is, which Omni, who is our third-party administrator that administers our plan, recommends us adopt.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Joe. All right,
And may I just,
Oh,
just
sure.
for clarification, Joe, there was no cost to the district.
It just doesn't change anything
Just-
except
yes.
for puts the rules for the Garrison plan in line with what the rules are for the hardship withdrawal. Yes.
thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Okay. Next, we shall move on to the personnel consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison, Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. All right, Carl, do you want to speak to these two briefly?
Sure. I just want to say thank you to Robert Grassi, who most people know as Butch. He was working here as a custodian, bus driver, and also additional responsibilities as lead custodian. Did an excellent job. We are happy for him. He accepted a job much closer to his home, and it was a better opportunity for him. So he did submit his resignation, and again, we thank him for his service. Additionally, there is a recommendation to appoint a girls' modified basketball coach. Mr. Ayuli has very good history with coaching. He's coached in several districts, just to name a few, Weebatuck, Wappingers, Millbrook. He's also worked at Marist College summer camp, so he has pretty extensive coaching qualifications in both basketball and baseball, so we do believe he will do a great job with our girls' modified team. The season has already started as far as practices, so we apologize to our community for this delay, but we did everything possible to secure a coach as quickly as possible. So the girls will be practicing on Monday. Mr. Beckley is making some adjustments to the season to make sure they have a sufficient number of practices prior to playing their first games.
What is modified basketball?
So that, David, is for 7th and 8th grade. And here in Garrison, we offer for boys and girls. Those are the only winter sports that we offer.
No, but I mean,
It's just regular basketball, it's the.
Okay, okay. I know you know basketball. I don't. However, yes, modified, unlike JV or varsity, the idea behind it is it's a learning experience. So, for example, if our girls team has a strong lead, the idea is to rotate students in and out, and learning is much more important than winning.
jumping is allowed.
It certainly is.
Still play by the actual rules of basketball as much as possible.
Yes, yes. And Garrison, fortunately, we have a no-cut policy, so all students are welcome. Some bigger schools do have a cut policy, but every one of our students who has a desire to play is able to play, and it's a really good experience.
Okay, do you have any other questions? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Okay, and we have the second public comment section. I'm not going to read my paragraph again, but the mic is open. I'm going to go ahead and move on now to board member comment and other discussion. Jocelyn? Okay. David? Madeline?
No comment.
Courtney?
No comment?
Kent?
No comment.
Matt? Okay, I have no further comment this evening. We now move on to enter executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of particular persons. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Okay. We will adjourn executive session without any further action being taken this evening.